the one thing that I've really been searching for, and you guys know, is my great love, my true love, and that's always been a bit of a struggle for me. I think what the universe will do is when you need to find self love, real self love, I think the universe forces you to be alone. And I think for almost 6 years now, the universe has forced me to be alone. And sure, I've dated here and there. You guys have seen me in a relationship, a 7-month relationship. But I would say, overall, when I look back at my life post divorce, I've essentially been alone. And I've needed that because without that, I don't think I would have. Well, I know I wouldn't have gotten to the place that I'm at today. It really made me take a hard look in the mirror, figure out what wasn't working, what I was doing wrong, and I had zero self love, and that's why it really makes sense to me why I attracted my whole life the men that I did, and even post divorce there was a little bit of that. The same type of man, and I think sometimes it is a little bit of a test. And actually I've attracted similar men more recently, and now I can spot it a mile away. And I think that the difference is I value myself now. So my tolerance for bullshit is really low. Really low. And I have a lot of deal breakers. I'm able to spot red flags almost immediately. And I like my own company. I love being alone. And because the other thing is too, no one else can make you happy. No one can make you happy. That is an inside job, and I think when you look to other people to make you happy, it's when you can get yourself into really sticky situations, because that's a dead end road, and I think then you put up with a lot that you wouldn't normally if you really did value yourself. Like if we all treated ourselves like our very best friend who we put on a pedestal and hold in such high regard, if, and I'm just gonna keep using the dating thing as an example. Like, if our best friend was dating a guy who really wasn't great, we would say that to her, we would be like, what are you doing? Like, he's kind of a piece of shit. And we would keep voicing our opinion. But when it's ourselves, we make excuses. We always I don't know, like, I think without that self-love, you make a lot of excuses. And by the way, that's actually with friendships too. And family members. That's actually with any relationship, not just a romantic relationship. When you have no real self love, you put up with a lot of bullshit from people across the board. That could actually even be employees as well, or an employer, a boss, whatever it may be, anyone in the work situation, any kind of relationship with another person, you will take more than you probably should. And I really do think boundaries with people is the most important thing. And again, those are really hard to establish until you value yourself and you learn to take care of your own wants and needs. But okay, so let's talk about this concept that life is a mirror. So, with this concept, it basically states that life reflects back to you whatever you subconsciously think and feel. So maybe on the outside and to yourself, you're like, no, I know I'm great. I know I'm valuable. I know that I deserve the best. But if subconsciously you're telling yourself a different story, well, that is what you'll be attracting in. Not this like frou-frou, fluffy surface self-love. It has to come from within. And so, you could ask yourself if in your life you have a lot of chaos going on around you. Well, that's because that's coming from in here. That is because your mind is chaos, so that's what you're attracting. And again, this is all energy. So if you don't like what's happening around you, you have to change internally the story you're telling yourself, the energy you're feeling, whatever it may be, it comes from within you. So if you're attracting the same type of guy, we'll just use a narcissist, well, what's that? You have to ask yourself, what is that teaching you about you? And so I've always said, the reason I attracted some of these people into my life was because of me and my lack of self-love. Because again, everyone is just going to be themselves. Everyone is moving through their lives being themselves. It's up to us to allow what we let into our lives or not let into our lives. And you can't judge someone with where they're at on their journey or their behavior or what they're doing because it has nothing to do with us. The problem is when we don't have the self-love and what we allow into our lives. And again, I mean, if I had the self-love that I have today, 20 years ago, let's just say, I think my life would look very different. And again, I don't want it to look any different. I'm very happy with the road that I've been down, and my life really does make sense to me. I think as you get older, life is like building blocks, and it all really does start to make sense, and why your journey has played out the way that it has. And I actually think it's really cool in that regard when you can kind of get a little bit older and then look back on your life. Everything in my life makes sense. Every little thing makes sense, and I understand it. And it's like when you can zoom out and look at your life from a long lens, it does make sense. Like it to me, it feels so perfectly planned in a lot of ways. And I think that part's really cool. And it makes me just kind of excited for the future. And actually, while we're talking about that, I kind of want to throw another little concept at you guys. Another thing that I've been playing with, I guess, for lack of better words, and something that I sort of learned through hypnotherapy was that I really do believe before we come to Earth, there's a blueprint for our life, and that we actually agree to the hardships that we're gonna go through. The big things in our lives, I think, are pre-planned. And of course, we have free will, and we can go right or left, and things can and take a turn. But I think the overarching themes of our lives are planned. And with that in mind, I think what's really helped me get through hard times is that if I believe I signed myself up for some of this stuff, then I know I can get through it. And that's why I've always said we're never given more than we can handle. Because again, if we signed ourselves up for whatever we're gonna go through, well, then we know that we're more than capable, and there's a lesson in there. I really do think if you can look through the lens of everything that's difficult in your life as being a lesson, and I know sometimes it's really, really hard to understand what that lesson is. But if you can at least ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? I think there's a lot of value in that. And I think it's empowering to take a hold of your life like that instead of the opposite, which is really just being the victim of your life, and there's no growth in that. And so I think if we can really stop and pause and ask ourselves, what is this trying to teach me? What is the lesson in this? And sometimes we may not know right away. I remember my mom used to say that to me growing up. You may not see why you're going through this right now, but one day it'll make sense. And I find myself saying that to my kids too. And it's really true. Sometimes in the moment we don't know why we are going through whatever it is that we're going through, but everything actually always does make sense. It really always does. And listen, I mean, I've lost a brother. I think a lot of times people will be like, well, why did I have to lose my mom or my dad or my brother or whatever it may be? And unfortunately, I think the hard part about that is that losing people is part of life. And as shitty as that is, however, I really don't think that it's goodbye forever. I know, even just with losing my brother, and we've talked about it, but all of the signs I've gotten from him, I know he's around. I know I'm gonna see him again. And I really think that we are eternal beings. And so death actually isn't a real concept. And so when we quote unquote die, I think we just go to another realm. And sure, the spirit world or heaven or whatever you want to call it, but I actually think, okay, I'm gonna get really woo-woo with you guys in this episode, okay? So if you're not into this, maybe just turn this episode off. I actually think that this life is the dream. And okay, stick with me. So, I don't know if you guys have seen this. Before I deleted TikTok, I started seeing this stuff where people are saying life is a simulation. And so, in that theory, it is. This is the dream state, and when we quote unquote die, that's when we really wake up, and that's real life. And you know what's so interesting about this? I remember saying this when I was probably like 18 to someone and being like, what if this is the dream? And when we die, like that's when we actually wake up. And now it's so crazy because I've seen evidence about this and how scientists are now starting to tap into this stuff. And the CIA just posted an article talking about, well, here, I'll read it to you. The headline was the CIA spent over a decade studying consciousness, brainwaves, and the nature of reality. They found that your mind can alter reality and that it's been classified until now. So that article just came out. And so science is catching up to spirituality. But if we can alter reality, well, then that is a simulation, right? And so, and quantum physics talks all about this, which I'm so obsessed with this concept, and I I love I love thinking about this stuff. I also will tell you anytime I've done any work spiritually, whether it be hypnotherapy, talking to mediums, um, bufo, anything that I've done, it really cements this idea that this is maybe not the real reality, if that makes sense. And so with that, we really can change our lives, and life is a mirror. And so playing with that concept is fascinating to me, and that's something I've been kind of messing with for a minute. So basically, we should be what we wish to seek. So again, I'll, have no problem admitting this. A really solid partnership is something that I have always wanted. I mean, more so now. I mean, listen, it's been up and down over the last few years. Sometimes I'm really happy being single, and I'm not sitting here feeling like I'm lacking something, and I also think this is kind of the key. I've had moments in the last few years where I have felt like I've been lacking that, and I've been like chasing it almost, which when you chase something, it only pushes it further away. And so now where I sit today is I feel very content and very happy on my own. But I will say the one thing in my life that I don't have, the only thing in my life that I don't have is a really great relationship, a romantic relationship. But I'm okay because I know it's coming. I literally feel it in my bones, in my soul. I know he is coming, but also I don't feel like I'm missing anything either, if that makes sense. But so if I want a relationship, let's say, I have to sit here and act from a place of love, not from a place of lack, which is the difference to, let's just use me 15 years ago, to me today is I'm coming at life from a very different place.